The second reason of the 10 reasons why human rights should occupy the centre of the global AIDS struggle is the following. Gender inequality makes women more vulnerable to HIV, with women and girls now having the highest rates of infection in heavily affected countries. Coming from Southern Africa as I do, this particular reason resonates very strongly with me because in the region that I come from and in the countries that we work in, women are definitely much more vulnerable to HIV infection. And that has a lot to do with the status that they enjoy or don't enjoy within society and within their own relationships. Until quite recently in Namibia, which is where I live, up until 15, 20 years ago, women were still subjected to marital power within their marriages, which meant that they were not able to contract independently. And they were treated as minors in terms of law. So from a legal perspective, women in many countries still today live under that kind of restraint. From a cultural perspective as well, women are treated very often as second-class citizens. So it's very difficult for women within relationships to insist on safer sex decisions. And this has huge impact on the vulnerability of women to HIV infection in Southern Africa. What's particularly worrying about this is that in the last 2 years or so, there's been a real proliferation of new laws being put in place around Southern Africa, HIV laws, that are supposed to be comprehensive pieces of legislation that deal with all aspects of the response to HIV, which on the face of it is not a bad idea, but there are some really troubling provisions in some of these laws. For example, provisions that make it a criminal offence to transmit HIV, and provisions that make it mandatory for you to disclose your HIV status to your sexual partner or marital partner within a certain period of time. And the strange thing about these laws is that the support for these laws has primarily come from women's groups. Women who are really frustrated about the fact that they're becoming infected within their own relationships. Primarily, I think, as a result of the large number of multiple concurrent partnerships that go on. So it's women who are pushing for this, but at the end of the day, the people who are going to suffer the most at the hands of these pieces of legislation are women. Because women are the first often to know their status, their HIV status, because of their accessing antenatal care during pregnancy. So they're first to know their status. It's very difficult for them to then come home and say to their partner, I'm living with HIV, because they are forever being blamed about being the person who has brought the virus into the relationship. So they can't disclose for real fears of violence or rejection or being thrown out of the house. They can't insist on safer sex with their partners because of their status within the relationship. So they're put in a position where they can't disclose, they can't engage in safer sex, they transmit the virus to their partner, male partner, and they will be the ones who'll be prosecuted for transmission of HIV. So, you know, it's a prime example of how the status of women is impacted by rights violations, particularly in the context of the right to equality, and how well-meaning laws, which are trying to ostensibly protect rights, have completely the opposite effect in terms of their impact on women.
For further information on human rights, HIV/AIDS, and to endorse now more than ever the joint statement, visit www.hivhumanrightsnow.org.